This is Europe on July 19th, 1870, and arguably, the single most important war between the Napoleonic Wars and the First World War has just begun. The Second French Empire has just declared war on the Prussian-led North German Confederation, starting the Franco-Prussian War. During this time, while officially ruled by Kaiser Wilhelm I, Prussia was really mainly being led by Otto von Bismarck. And Bismarck's top political goal was to unite all German-speaking lands into one German state led by Prussia. It's important to note that Germany did not exist during this time, and instead were dozens of small German-speaking countries. Since the Napoleonic Wars had occurred, there was a rising sense of German nationalism among the various German-speaking people. This nationalism among the Germans would play a critical role in the revolutions of 1848, in which a pan-Germanic wave spread across Central Europe. This would result in the Frankfurt Parliament, which is a freely elected political body that represented all ethnic German people. They sought to create one German state under Wilhelm I's predecessor, Kaiser Frederick William IV. This state ideally would have a liberal government and wouldn't be Prussian-dominated. Kaiser Frederick would refuse the offer by the Frankfurt Parliament, stating that he would not accept, quote, a crown from the gutter, end quote. This refusal would give Minister-President of Prussia Otto von Bismarck the chance to form Germany under Prussian leadership without any liberalism in the government. As Bismarck stated in a speech given on September 30th, 1862, quote, "The position of Prussia in Germany will not be determined by its liberalism, but by its power. Not through speeches and majority decisions will the great questions of the day be decided. That was the mistake of 1848 and 1849. But by iron and blood," end quote. Essentially, Bismarck is saying that Germany cannot be founded on liberalism, but must be founded on its power of industry and military might. Bismarck's first step in achieving this goal would be to assert Prussia as the dominant German state. For hundreds of years before Napoleon, the de facto dominant German state was the Habsburg-led Austria, as they held the seat of power in the Holy Roman Empire. This position of dominance would become less secure after Austria lost several times to Napoleon. Bismarck would see his chance to have Prussia replace Austria during the Second Schleswig-Holstein War. This conflict is famously over-complex, with British Prime Minister Lord Palmerston saying, "Only 3 people have ever really understood the Schleswig-Holstein business. The Prince Consort, who is dead, a German professor, who has gone mad, and I, who has forgotten all about it." Basically, the important part is that Prussia and Austria went to war with Denmark, won, and then split the territory of Schleswig-Holstein between them. Bismarck wanted this because he knew the peace that was achieved was unsustainable, and that Prussia and Austria would be at war with each other over it. Sure enough, the war with Austria would come on June 14th, 1866, over conflicts with the administration of Schleswig-Holstein. The Prussian army heavily outclassed the Austrians in this war, and within 1 month and 8 days of the war starting, the Austrians agreed to peace talks with Prussia. The peace deal was very fair to Austria, only forcing them to cede some territory to Italy and to agree to be excluded from any formation of Germany. While some, like Kaiser Wilhelm, wanted to march on Vienna and humiliate Austria, Bismarck knew that this would permanently turn Austria against Prussia and make them seek revenge someday. Following this conflict, Prussia formed the North German Confederation, in which all northern German states would unify with Prussia as the leading state. The only thing that was left for Bismarck was to bring the southern German states into the fold. He knew to do this he would need another war in which he could flex the Prussian military muscle to win these states over. He also knew, however, that this war couldn't be an offensive one, otherwise Prussia would look too much like conquerors and it would scare the southern states away. So, long story short, Bismarck played on Napoleon III's crucial weakness. He was an idiot. Bismarck, through an inheriting crisis over Spain, managed to manipulate Napoleon III into declaring war on Prussia. Now Prussia was the defender of the German people to the southern states, and only one thing was left: win the war. And basically this went better for Bismarck than he could have imagined. The German armies broke through the French lines, swung north, and encircled most of the French army, including Napoleon III. The French emperor would be captured at the Battle of Sedan, along with over 100,000 French soldiers. This battle would end the Second French Empire, and while the government of national defense would take over what remained of France and continue fighting for several more months, the war had been essentially lost. The German Empire was proclaimed in the Hall of Mirrors at the Palace of Versailles on January 18, 1871. Paris itself held out for another 10 days before being captured by the Prussians, and with its fall, the war was over. In the aftermath, France would have to cede Alsace-Lorraine to the new German Empire. With this victory, Bismarck succeeded in unifying Germany into one Prussian-led state. With the unification of Germany, the balance of power in Europe greatly shifted, as Germany was now arguably the single strongest nation on continental Europe.